So I'm going to share something that I just received in an email, and thought I'd share it with you. And as I speak to it, as I read from it, I'll speak to it. So it says, no Cole Bishop language in Senate Appropriations Bill. Flavor amendment averted. May 25th, 2018. As we reported last week, and I shared this in a video last week, the House Appropriations Committee included language in the House Agricultural Appropriations Bill that gave regulatory relief only for combustible tobacco products, and they were talking in terms of premium cigars. As we also noted, our teams were working to ensure that such language would not be included in the Senate Agriculture Appropriations Bill. This week, no such language was included in the chairman's meaning markup, nor offered as an amendment either at the Senate Agriculture Appropriations Subcommittee on Tuesday or by the full Senate Appropriations Committee yesterday. The bill, as marked up, contains no language that would give relief to combustible tobacco products. So for now, we have prevented the House's language from being included in the Senate bill. At the same time, our teams were working against an effort to add legislative language regarding flavors to the Senate bill. Our efforts in this regard also were successful, and the proponent, Senator Richard Durbin, Democrat out of Illinois, agreed not to offer any such amendment. Instead, Senator Durbin was able to get report language inserted to the committee report. Report language is not law, is not precedent, and agencies like the FDA tend to treat this language as advisory. It is not in any way legally binding on any agency or entity, which is like similar to a FDA draft guidance. Below is the report language that was included in the Senate Appropriations Report in lieu of Senator Durbin's moving forward with an amendment seeking to ban flavors. As you will see, the focus of the report language is on youth, marketing, and flavors, issues which Vapor Technology Association is tackling head-on, and issues that FDA has already announced they are pushing. Youth tobacco use prevention. While FDA has recently announced a new youth tobacco prevention plan to attempt to curb the use of e-cigarettes among youth, the committee is concerned with irresponsible marketing by some manufacturers, as well as the role characterizing flavors play in youth initiation of tobacco products. In March 2018, FDA issued an advance notice proposed rulemaking to examine regulatory options for tobacco product flavorings. The committee strongly encourages the agency to complete the regulatory process in an expeditious manner, ideally within 1 year, and in a way that supports prevention of youth tobacco initiation. And I just want to say as a side note before I read on, basically even though it is a report and is advisory to the FDA, what the VTA doesn't tell you, though, is that if the FDA decides within 1 year to ban all flavors, this report is basically saying that the Congress will not refute or will not discourage that from happening. In other words, they will support the FDA Commissioner Scott Gottlieb and Director of Center for Tobacco Products Mitch Zeller. If they do across-the-board flavor ban, and all you have left is tobacco, because they could also ban menthol as well, then they get the full support of the Senate or full support of the Congress, which VTA doesn't really tell you that, but I'm telling you that, which is a very scary thought. Think about it. Anyway, continue on. The agency is instructed to provide the committee with a time frame for when the regulatory process will be completed. So the FDA, in due time, will send a memo or whatever to the committee and let them know basically how long this advanced notice of proposed rulemaking, as well as the notice of proposed rulemaking, how long it will go on. Normally, it's anywhere from 90 days to 2 years, but they can certainly shorten that. Anyway, additionally, the committee is concerned that FDA is not fully enforcing their prohibition of new or changed e-cigarettes and other nicotine products after August 8th, 2016, without prior FDA review and authorization. And once again, any products that have a manufacturer finished product date after August 8th, 2016, if the FDA commissioner and the director of Center for Tobacco Products decides to come after these particular manufacturers, retailers, distributors, wholesalers, mainly manufacturers, Congress will support them on that, is basically what it's saying. Once again, VTA won't tell you that. Additionally, the committee is concerned that FDA is not fully I just read that. Therefore, the committee directs FDA to order the removal of any deemed tobacco products introduced after the August 8th, 2016 deadline without first seeking the required FDA authorization. Now, this is very scary stuff to think about. So the committee, which is Congress, is basically saying to the FDA, the next move you need to do is go after products that have a manufacturer finished product date after August 8, 2016. And so once this stuff gets passed through the Congress, because it's in committee, and once it goes through Congress, well, there you go. And I'm sure Congress probably approve of this language. And so they're encouraging the FDA commissioner to go after products and remove them from the marketplace that do not have marketing orders of products that have a manufacturer finished product date after August 8, 2016. Once again, the VTA fails to tell you that. Finally, the committee is concerned about the lack of adequate age verification rules to prevent internet sales of e-cigarette tobacco products to children and directs FDA to establish these rules within 1 year, both at the time of sale and delivery of the product. Now, even though this is not a requirement by law, this committee to the FDA, the committee is encouraging the FDA to do so. They're directing the FDA in that direction. So if the FDA decides to have this like an agechecker.net, where you have to provide photo ID for online sales as well as face-to-face offline sales with an ID to prove that you're over 18 years of age, the FDA is encouraged by the committee/Congress to put rules in place within 1 year for this to happen. So then it states, at best, the report language affirms what the FDA has already announced they are doing. Now, this is kind of weird here. The FDA certainly has it within their regulatory powers to do so, absolutely. The FDA has yet to put out a draft guidance or a press release saying that they will have adequate age verification rules within 1 year. FDA has yet to say that. Also, the FDA has yet to say that, it says here, with the manufacturer finished product date products after August 8, 2016 without a FDA marketing order, he's not necessarily put a draft guidance out or a press release that basically says that's exactly what they're working on now. This mainly has to do with flavors. But once again, the committee/Congress is actually encouraging the FDA to step up its powers to step up the action on doing so. Once again, the VTA fails to tell you this. Importantly, report language has been used many times in the past when there was no support for actual legislation. Such language often asks an agency to report back to Congress on certain items. In our experience, it is only on the rarest of occasions that any agency either reports back, or if they do at all, reports back within the time frame requested. Now, the FDA commissioner may wait a little longer than 1 year, but because of the issues that we have, and especially the FDA being sued by the health groups in regards to the August 8, 2018 being moved to August 8, 2022, the FDA most likely will report back to Congress with no problem, because they're being, in other words, the FDA is being encouraged or supported by Congress to fully implement the FDA Final Rule / Tobacco Control Act, or the Family Smoking Prevention Tobacco Control Act of 2009. As far as the time frames of 1 year, well, that's anybody's guess. But Congress is certainly urging the FDA to, step up the time here. Furthermore, these questions could have been addressed at the budget hearing earlier this spring when Commissioner Gottlieb testified at the Senate Appropriations Committee, but they were not. Senator Durbin's brief speech yesterday at the full committee markup attempted to elicit supposed horrors associated with nicotine, even though Commissioner Gottlieb and Director Zeller repeatedly state publicly that nicotine is not the problem. Well, I don't know about that. I mean, Gottlieb considers nicotine highly addictive, and so does Zeller. Though they do say that the composite cigarettes and traditional cigarettes have these chemicals in there that are extremely detrimental to one's health. And they also speak about vapor products, especially e-liquids, that have, through their own studies, not that I agree with them, not that you agree with them, but what matters is what the CTP and the FDA does. And according to their studies, there is a problem with the e-liquids as far as chemicals and things of that nature. Anyway, moreover, in a zeal to castigate the vapor industry to the hottest ring in hell, Senator Durbin went so far as to equate nicotine addiction to opioid addiction. Now, that is a bit of a stretch. We'll say nicotine addiction is just like opioid addiction is just a bit too much, but whatever. Even if offered to score political points, such comments do a grave disservice to all those teens and adults who are suffering and dying from opioids, and demonstrate a callousness to all the family members left to pick up the pieces of what is a true addiction crisis confronting our country. Now, don't get me wrong, I mean, nicotine can be highly abused, and it's definitely addictive. I don't know necessarily it's highly addictive, but it's definitely addictive. But to equate it with opioids is just a bit much there. But, Gottlieb has this whole thing going on now with the opioid epidemic. So it's sort of, it's sort of a sentimental value there that Senator Durbin's playing on. So it says, moving forward, we are charting a path for educating and informing members of Congress over the perils associated with the House's appropriations language and the importance of supporting vapor products which are challenging the dominance of combustible tobacco products in the marketplace. To that end, please take a moment to register and boom and ba. Thank you for all you do to defend vapor. Tony Aboud, Executive Director, Vapor Technology Association. The thing is like I was pointing out, this language here, the VTA is making it appear like it's not so bad, like they did us a favor. In fact, regardless if the VTA encouraged this type of language or not, this is not good for us. Because, for instance, Congress is basically saying, we stand by the Tobacco Control Act. We stand by the FDA final rule. And it's FDA Commissioner Scott Gottlieb and the Center for Tobacco Products Director Mitch Zeller who needs to stand by the Tobacco Control Act and the FDA final rule and enforce it on the same equal basis that Congress supports it as. And then that, you think about it, it's very scary. That is why I say all the time that going to Congress with any kind of vapor language will fail miserably in Congress. In fact, Congress is waiting. Congress gave the complete full green light to the FDA and CTP to carry out its mission that's contained in the Tobacco Control Act and the FDA final rule. They are 110% behind that. Here they are, not just talking about flavors, right? A flavor ban, but they're also talking about manufacturer finished product date products after August 8, 2016. This is in the language now, congressional language. And not only that, they're also talking about age restriction, which they should have had in place all this time, online, offline vendors. But now it's being encouraged. It's being fully supported by the Congress to the FDA Commissioner and the Director of Center for Tobacco Products. So then what do you have left? So Congress is not in our corner at all. Forget Congress. I have been saying that for some time. Anyone that thinks otherwise are living in la la land. As far as the courts' hands are tied. The courts are basically going to say, we're going to give deference to the FDA. We're going to apply the Chevron doctrine, prong one, clear language in the Tobacco Control Act, clear language in the FDA final rule. And all the courts are going to say you have a problem with it, just like the lower court with the United States District of Columbia with the Nicopure Labs Right to Be Smoke-Free Coalition. Judge Amy Berman Jackson. What the Court of Appeals is going to say, and we think, well, it's just one court. There's other lawsuits out there. The problem with this one Court of Appeals of the District of Columbia is that it's going to set precedents in regards to vapor products, vaping market, vaping industry. And that's where it's scary at. And there's a lot of judges in other courts, especially in the lower courts, that are probably waiting to see what the Court of Appeals does. And then they will decide, he or she, whatever judge it is, will decide how and when to apply that particular ruling to their own cases in regards to Larry Faircloth, Lost Art Liquids, Alabama Vape Shops, a few others out there. So the Court of Appeals is basically going to say, through the deference clause, or well, not deference clause, but the meaning of the Chevron doctrine is to give deference to, that's DEFERENCE, give deference to the FDA. And if you have a problem with the language in the Tobacco Control Act and in the FDA final rule, you need to go to Congress. And the answer to that, the scary answer to all that is we don't have Congress on our side. And this is a perfect example of what this is in this gray area, shaded area that I point out on the screen here that I'm scrolling on. Perfect example to tell you that Congress is definitely not in the corner of the vaping industry / community. So the court's hands are tied. Congress is encouraging the FDA and CTP to go full steam ahead. So what do we have left? The entire fate of the vaping industry and community is in the hands. I'm going to end it on this. You either accept this as reality or just continue to live in la la land or rationalize and justify or whatever the heck you want to call it. Hope for a better day, whatever you want to do. continue to live in La La Land. But I ended on this. The entire fate of the vaping industry, yes, entirely, 110% of the entire vaping industry and community the entire fate, F-A-T-E, the fate of the entire vaping industry and community lies in the hands of FDA Commissioner Scott Gottlieb and Center for Tobacco Products Director Mitch Zeller. Period. And that's where we're at right now, and it'll remain like that up until about August of 8th of 2022, unless that time's shortened closer to the August 8th of 2018. Once August 8th of 2018 passes, any date after August 8th of 2018 becomes the final date, where everything becomes prohibited in regards to the FDA final rule. That is the harsh reality that we must all face, come to grips with, face head on, deal with, and figure out how you're going to operate as a vapor once that happens. Once the final curtain goes down. And on that point, you guys have a good one. Bye-bye.